Well, welcome guys. And Melissa, so good to see you. And today we really want to talk about, I know we've been talking about parasites, we've been talking about gut health, and today we're going to dig deeper into the parasite thing. And I wanted to share, because I'm actually in the middle of this journey with Melissa as my practitioner. And I wanted to at least, I guess, explain to you guys, like, even why I wanted to work with Melissa and why we ended up in this spot. So I know I've shared a bit in the past about kind of my journey with traditional healthcare and medications and yada, yada. I really poor gut health, really my whole life, if I look back, and that's important to note, because we're going to talk about how the heck you end up with these things, because I know, the thought of it is like, ew, but a lot of people have it. What is the actual statistic, Melissa? Because I know I said 85% and you were like, it's actually more than that.
Yeah. So when I was teaching in my first round of understanding and going through classes around this, the professor said, here's the best parasite test. And he was like, go like this. I'm like, okay. And everybody did. He's like, if you have a pulse, you have parasites. Oh my God. I was like, no. But I'm starting to understand that the actual percentage is pretty high if it's not in the high 90s. Yeah. And it's hard to put a true number on that.
Yeah. Well, because I think, the thing that I realized, so I've worked with holistic practitioners prior to meeting Melissa, and they're wonderful people and have healed a lot of things. But as I started to feel better, I actually became so keenly aware of how my body feels. Like, I work with a homeopath pretty consistently, and he always says to me, you're so in tune with your body. And that has come through this evolution of holistic wellness, right? And so what happened for me, you guys, was during COVID, I got really puffy. My other holistic practitioner chalked it up to adrenal fatigue, which I do believe there was a component of that for sure. Got stress levels under control. My eating is so on point. And I train really heavily and a lot with a wonderful trainer. And so it wasn't making sense why I was still so inflamed. And so that's when, I started to find some supplements that were helping to bring the inflammation down. But, Melissa and I were working together, and I just said, I feel like there's something still that needs to be fixed. And so we did all my blood work and everything. And she just said, there's this baseline inflammation going on. It's pretty likely that's parasites. And there was some in my blood work that indicated that that was true. And so, we started this protocol, and, I shared with her that as I've been talking to some of my people, like my best friends, and saying, they're like, everyone's like, how did you get these? And it's funny because I go to Mexico a lot, and they're like, is it from Mexico? It's like, no, it's not, we have these ideas of where these things come from. But I think one of the biggest things I've learned from you, Melissa, is that if you have a gut issue, right, which I clearly from a very young age had, and we won't get into all the reasons why, but, I've always had not a great gut microbiome. Clearly, I believe I've had leaky gut probably my whole life, at least for most of it. And if that environment is poor, then these little guys can create a home, because the environment is conducive to them being able to stay. And I think the important thing to know is, if you don't have poor gut health, then these will just pass through you and you carry on with your day. And I know I said to Melissa, even as we're healing this, my concern is do these come back? But it's I remind myself, no, we're doing all this healing work so that I'm good. And after that, I'm not gonna have to worry about this all the time. And actually, I was sharing this with one of my best friends, and she has a good friend who's from Russia. And I guess over there, they do anti-parasitics all the time with kids and adults. That's just part of their normal health protocol. I found that fascinating and also very smart. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the alarming things, so I think the obvious things people think of are raw foods, undercooked things, but you even shared that it could come off fruits and vegetables, which I know is not something I ever thought of. If things aren't washed properly, I was like, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So to freak everybody out. No. No. So I think it's just to have this
Oh.
conversation, because if
Mhm.
you've been trying other things, this is really the reason why we wanted to bring it up, because as we've been talking through so many different diagnoses, we keep landing back on parasitic issues. You know, and I think the reason why we want to bring it up again is if you are working with practitioners, particularly like, you know, holistic ones. And again, this does not mean that they're not doing their job, because they're probably still helping with a lot of the issues around it. But if there's still a lot of this going on, there's most likely an issue, right? And they may just be missing this, because I know you said, Melissa, there's not one test that just says, yes, you have these.
Right.
It's really a matter of deciphering a few other pieces of information, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, because we don't have a really good, just a single parasite test. A lot of times we need to look at blood work, especially the white blood cells, to see what patterns we're seeing in there. We look at what the body symptoms are. And I think along with this, like when we post this video, I have just a simple questionnaire. Do I have parasites questionnaire? I'll put the link to that. Anybody can go through that. And if you're experiencing more than 2 or 3 of those symptoms, it's pretty certain that you have some parasite activity going on. But the biggest thing I think is that we understand that if we have parasites, it's not because we have chosen badly in our foods, or that we're doing a bad job of cleanliness, or, you know, that it's somehow something wrong with us, that we're not trying to be clean or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, to kind of throw away the stigmatism of, oh my gosh, you know, I've got parasites, I'm a terrible person. No, you live like the rest of us, and you're living life fully, which is what we should do. So there are some pieces.
Because I think, I know we touched upon like the use of even all these disinfectants, which actually hurt your gut biome so badly, you guys. But we get the idea like, well, everything's super clean now. And so, you know, sometimes it's actually over cleaning. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
I think it's important, because I'm a person, like, I'm that person that's like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? I am such a clean human.
Right.
Like, but then I realized, like, okay, that's not the point. Like, it's not. And I love the fact that you just said, like, this doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong, because it doesn't, you guys. I mean, no. The clear indicator for me, which is probably not good, that my stomach was so distended, despite, and if this is your first episode watching us, I don't eat refined sugar, gluten, dairy, soy. There's a bunch of other things I'm also allergic to, but those are things I don't ever ingest. And so, so it didn't make sense that I had so much inflammation, particularly in my abdomen after that. And then, you know, training. And I know Melissa, like, my best friend is a professional competitive bodybuilder, and we do the same workouts. And we were having very different results. And that was super frustrating, because it was like, what is going on here? Like, and so what is happening now through this process is the inflammation is certainly down in my abdomen, which was an area that really highlighted it. Like, you know, like, we even took a picture in our bathing suits at the beach, and I actually let her post it. So I was like, oh, okay, I can actually like see my abs again. This is exciting. But what's crazy is how the inflammation everywhere else is coming down. So, you know, I kept using the phrase, I felt like a tick, where I would joke and be like, I feel like a potato, but it was true. It just felt like this all the time. Which, you know, like, I'm not a large person, so I don't think other people would look at me and think that. But I know, like, you know, even my trainer, who obviously knows how hard I'm working, would be like, it just doesn't make sense. You know, and because I have a lot of sensitivities, which I've always had, you know, but again, that speaks to poor gut health, that I had all these allergies as a little tiny human.
That speaks to parasites back then.
Yeah, right. So, you know, which is like, oh, so, you know, I mean, we're I'm like, how long is it going to take to get rid of these guys? I don't know, but
Oh,
they've been served their eviction notice, and so we're working on it. But
I love that. They've been served.
yeah,
They've been served.
they've been served. But yeah, I mean, I think, and it's very interesting because I think when I had really bad seasonal allergies. My allergies have actually improved because of all the gut work I've done, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I used to actually, this I'll share, when I was in my 20s, I remember if like during when the pine pollen comes here, it's like
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
thick yellow. I
Mm-hmm.
literally couldn't even put my window down in my car.
Oh,
Like it was that bad. My allergies were that bad. And so, I can see an improvement for sure
mm-hmm.
from where I've come from that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, I mean, as a little kid, I was just, constantly, the
Mm.
food allergies started. Like, I
Yeah.
actually recall my mom saying something about like issues with formula too, even. So,
Wow.
right. So you're right. That's obviously indicates that there was an issue way back when, but we don't talk about this enough, I think, just as a culture. If we were
Right.
focusing on building gut health for little people who are having these problems,
Mm-hmm.
we'd have a lot less sick adults, like trying to
Mm-hmm.
fix it and backpedal now, right?
Exactly. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually found the slide I was looking
Oh,
for.
good. Yay.
Let me share this with you guys.
Awesome.
So this is part of a presentation that I did not very long ago for an MS summit that I was a speaker in. And I think I'm going to reproduce it just for us,
Yeah.
just for all of, you guys. So I'm going to try to redo that today, but this is one of the slides. So we think about, quite frankly, parasites as being a problem in undeveloped countries, but it's literally becoming, if you want to call it, more of an epidemic here. Okay. So what is a parasite? It's an organism that lives on or in a host organism and gets its food from or at the expense of its hosts. All right. Parasites can be the root cause of many of your chronic health issues, autoimmune issues, food sensitivities, and gut problems. I see that a lot. And we kind of touched on that. But this is the answer to the question. Where do we get these buggers, right? So contaminated or infected blood transfusions. Go back to what we were talking about of not having a good way to detect. This is getting much, much better, but it is still an issue. Food. It could be uncooked foods, just like you were mentioning already. It can be from our veggies coming out of the ground, not being washed really well. Other people. So far, the people that I have experienced in my practice that have the most diverse parasite population have been so far people who work with kiddos.
Yeah.
And you can get it from, somebody sneezing on you or wiping their nose and, putting it on your hand. It can, it can be spread by contact. Pets and animals. We think about this, getting parasites more from potentially farm type animals, right?
Yeah.
But our furry friends that sleep with us on the bed and that we love so dearly, they need to be warmed regularly because they can share those with us. Soil, good old fashioned dirt. I'll tell you what, there's not much I love more than sinking my toes into fresh dirt or sand. I love it.
Yep.
But that's a potential. Surfaces, like we were talking before, somebody shares a sneeze or licks something, we can, and we come behind and it comes in contact with us. Toilets, that's a common one. Whoopsie. Toilets are a common place, especially public toilets. And water. Water is a big one. Waterborne parasites. This is something that like our municipal water sources, they're always trying to come up with good ways to eliminate this. But this sometimes can bear testing for you.
Yeah.
I love this little, my little toad on the toilet looking at his cell phone.
He's so cute.
Isn't he cute? But it's really simple. The thing of it is, though, we have to realize that our bodies have the protective mechanisms in place, that when we're in a good place, especially our stomach acid, our digestive enzymes, and how our bodies work, like our immune system has to be working well. When those things are working really well, ticking along like they're supposed to, we don't need to be afraid of something like this. Okay. And there are also, like, especially somebody that has a really pronounced infestation, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
Once we get rid of that, we can do maintenance for a little while, and then you should be good.
And I know, like, our intention is a 4-month protocol, but I know you said that sometimes people need longer depending on, you know, and it doesn't sound like it's necessarily how long they've been there. It's really just like how bad it's gotten, right?
Exactly. And we never want to go faster than the body can handle.
Right. Yes. Because those symptoms, you guys, are not fun. I just had that in the day. So as much as I would like to vacate them all like this second, you do have to listen to your body for sure. And, you know, I think the thing too, like, you know, I know we talked about water filtration. You know, I know, like, we get, you know, like spring water delivered, like, you know, there's all sorts of ways you can, you know, there is. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to pay attention to it for sure. But I think, you know, the key is you also don't want to become psychotic, right? I get it. Like, I
don't want to live in fear.
Right. And like, be testing every little thing you touch. And, you know, the thing is, you know, it sounds like, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, like, focus on building the gut. Your body will be able to defend itself against it. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, I think for sure, like, it's interesting that, you know, like it was fascinating to hear, like, yeah, like in Russia, like they do this protocol once a year, but it's like, you know, it just kind of keeps things functioning. And I'm sure, you know, once we get me to a place, it's like, I'm sure I'll be able to tell, like, all right, well, it's time for us to do a touch up or whatever, you know. But it really is, you guys, the cool thing is this: the better you start to feel, the more you can be aware of when you don't feel great, right?
Exactly.
It's like that fine tuning. And I'm a person who's always like looking for that 1% edge. So for me, it's like, I just spot it now, right? But, you know, when I felt so lousy, I was like over medicated and just like not eating well and not taking care of myself, like I felt so crappy all the time. It's like you can't even tell like what the issue is, right? So, you know, if you are in a place where you're like, well, I'm doing a lot of the right things, but also maybe there's something else more I can do, you know, this is a really great conversation to have. And I think for you, Melissa, it's almost like a specialty of yours, it seems, because you
it's coming to be.
Well, and you know what? I mean, listen, if so many people have them, right? Like, then it reckons that, you know, we need more people that are paying attention to this, because like it's funny. I just looked down at my leg. It's like I haven't seen my quadricep muscles in like years, but it's because I was just so inflamed, right? So like, you know, it's wild what these little things can do when they do. They wreak havoc because not supposed to be there, right? They're like, the unwanted tenants. So now, so people are, and I know we share our info all the time, but if people are like, okay, I know I send people to you a lot. So I know the first step is always like a discovery session with Melissa, talking about like what is going on.
Big picture.
And then, you know, from there, she'll help you dial it in. But if you're having any inclination, I mean, here's like, all right, I'm going to list some symptoms like too, because I know you have the test, Melissa, what you're going to share, but like, seems like constipation is a big one. I talk to so many women who, you know, are constipated and irregular. And I will say that like my digestive tract is working better than it has in a long time. And it was starting to, but like even through this process, I'm like, oh, okay.
This is how it's supposed to be.
Bloating anytime you eat, because this is the thing, you guys, like Melissa shared, like they're eating your food. Like my appetite has been so small for the last like couple weeks, but because like I'm actually absorbing my nutrients versus these things. So I'm eating like a fraction, which I know I'll work my way back up because, I need to eat a certain way because of the way I train. But like, I'm also just kind of letting my body do what it needs to right now. If it's full, and like it's cool because it actually probably hasn't been able to ingest this much food in a really long time, right? I mean, and that's really scary to me. And you guys, by the way, like that's another key component. If you're not losing weight, you could be not eating enough, which may not be the food you're ingesting if something else is robbing your nutrients,
Exactly.
So like these are some things that like I've been putting together personally. I'm imagining diarrhea. So people have the opposite issue. Headaches, right? Like,
bloating in the belly that just won't go away. Pain in the belly, especially around the where your belly button is.
Okay.
Neurological symptoms.
Yeah. I know we touched on ADHD and stuff a few weeks ago, but I feel like this whole lack of focus thing we've got going on in our society, which I know we talked about in terms of food, but I mean, if you're really having a hard time, and maybe this would be cool for our next episode, is I'm sure there's research around dementia and all this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Skin stuff, anybody that has eczema, that just won't go away, or rashes that just won't go away.
Yeah. So when you think about that, I'm like, man, like I know, like so many names are running through my head right now as you're saying that. And I'm like, holy
grinding your teeth, especially at night.
That's wild because I have done that forever. I have grinding my teeth, I think my entire lifetime. I actually have a splint. I couldn't tell you if I still actually do it because I just am so conditioned to wearing that, but that is very interesting.
Big one.
Yeah.
Because they're more active at night.
Okay. So what's the correlation there? Now I'm like fascinated. Like I wonder why that makes you grind your teeth.
Just your stomach isn't at rest. Another one is the new moon, or when the full moon, sorry. That's another very active time, or for gals, right before our menses.
Okay. Yep.
Hormones are lovely.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing that I will say through all my healing work, like you don't have to be crazy around your cycle, guys. Like I used to have such bad anxiety the week before. And I will say that I'm like, I really never really aware when it's happening. Also, I'm like, oh, okay, that's happening. But I used to be so acutely aware.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, the bottom line is it's all meant to give you a better quality of life, right? And that's what we're just trying to do is help people feel their best.
Better balance.
But I think, that's really something that, I just think we have a preconceived notion about this. And I think you and I are trying to break stigmas around a lot of things, right?
Yes, we are.
I feel like every week we're like, well, this conversation is going to trigger someone. But to be honest, you guys, like this conversation would have triggered me because the thought of like, oh my gosh, like again, I'm such a clean person. I do this. It's like, guys, it has nothing to do with that. So don't be ashamed of it either. Like I could feel like for me, like it's just educating people because, for someone who works so hard to take care of themselves, it's like, okay, like we're here. This is what's happening. We just have to fix the problem, and for me, I'm just grateful. Like we know what it is, right? For me, it's like, oh, good. We finally have an answer. And, and it's, often wrapped in with other things, right? Like I know we had, but they often come along with, and I'm venturing, I know we talked about SIBO a few weeks ago, but I'm venturing to guess that most people that have that probably have a parasite issue along with it, right? Because that probably creates a really nice environment for them to hang out in. So like, and I know at least the protocol you have me on is taking care of all of it,
all at one time. That's why we have to go gentle and listen to your body, because we're sweeping the counter.
Yeah. Ripping it down to the studs, right? No.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, you guys, I know Melissa's goal is not to keep people for clients forever, like you'll always have her for a resource if something comes up, but she really does want you to feel better, which I appreciate so much because, we want to get into our best state of health and
exactly.
then
And stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, awesome. Well, another valuable conversation, Melissa, for sure. And seriously, you guys, like, if you have questions, please reach out to her. Sagebrush Wellness. I know I've been tagging her on my Insta every time I talk about this stuff, but just, like, meet with her, have a conversation, and then do whatever you need to do to figure out what's going on, because you will, you'll thank yourself because you'll feel better. And that's the goal, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for sharing so much.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Of your personal story.
I know.
That's amazing. Thank you.
I'm like, all right. Everyone knows that.
Here it is.
But we're getting rid of them. No, it's I think it's important because, like, it's interesting. Melissa knows I had to be really transparent with my trainer because I just knew there'd be some days where I didn't feel good, because as you're going through this, you might have some nausea and things going on. And I just felt like it was important for him to know if I came in. It was so funny because one day I came in, he's like, "Are you hungover?" And I'm like, "No, like I haven't had a drink." I was like, so I had to explain to him what was happening. And he was like, "Oh gosh." And he's like, "Okay, well, that makes sense." But like, he's also never really, witnessed someone going through this, but he's obviously been watching this journey and been trying to figure out what's going on. And so, but I, I'm not obviously kind of broadcasting it all the time, but I think if it can help people, yes, there's going to be a process to it, but it'll be worth it if you can get on the other side. So, and awesome person help you with it. So awesome. Well, thanks, Melissa. I appreciate my journey. And listen, you guys, seriously, you might want to have it looked at, like, for sure.
Oh, have an amazing day. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for having this conversation with me. I love it. I love it very much. And you guys, if you have questions, I'm here to answer. Melissa's here to answer. So don't hold back, because often intuitively we know what's going on in our bodies. So, awesome. Well, have an amazing rest of your day. We'll talk to you next week.